The Harris poll every year has a range of questions which test what they call alienation from institutions, a measure of whether the extent to which you think that any institutions, political, economic, social, are doing anything for you or you have anything to do with them. And that number keeps going up. In 1991, the last one, it hit its peak so far. 2/3 of the population thinks that none of the institutions involve them. Economic, social, anything. Political, it's much higher. Nobody thinks the political institutions do anything. The individual questions are interesting. People were asked, what do you think about the economy? 83% of the population regards the economic system as inherently unfair. Something fundamentally wrong with it. Well, that's not the kind of issue that can show up in a campaign. I mean, no candidate can come and say, look, our problem is our economic institutions. They're inherently unfair. I mean, maybe 83% of the population thinks it, but nobody's going to say that, because that's not conducive to the needs of the people who own the country and therefore have to run it. In fact, the reporter who reported this, actually, he couldn't see it or or suppressed it. He said, well, what this means is people are opposed to their overpaid politicians. But that's not what people were saying. They're not saying we're opposed to our overpaid politicians. We're saying the economic system is inherently unfair. That's much deeper, and you can understand why. All the decisions are out of public control. I mean, nobody makes any decisions about investment or production or distribution or whatever. That's completely out of public control, and people can see the consequences. Look around and you see the consequences. Right through the Reagan years, people were regularly asked attitudes which come down to basically social democracy, like how do you feel about expenditures for welfare and education and military and taxes and so on, and the answers were quite steady. There was a steady drift right through the Reagan years towards more social democratic positions. That is, more spending for social needs, less spending for military. People were willing, by and large, to accept higher taxes for spending for education and welfare and so on. It doesn't matter that the population is going the other way. The people who care, the responsible men, are going their way, and their way is power has to get vested even more than before in the narrow sectors of privilege, and the population has to be marginalized. So it doesn't matter what the general population thinks, as long as they don't do anything about it, as long as they're scattered and dispersed, which they are.